Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley.
If you love chilling mysteries, unsolved cases, and a touch of mom-style humor, Moms and Mysteries is the podcast you've been searching for. Hey guys, I'm Mandy.
And I'm Melissa. Join us every Tuesday for Moms and Mysteries, your gateway to gripping, well-researched true crime stories. Each week, we deep dive into a variety of mind-boggling cases as we shed light on everything from heists to whodunits. We're your go-to podcast for mysteries with a motherly touch. Subscribe now to Moms and Mysteries wherever you get your podcast.
My nephew's name is Declan Thomas. I remember the first thing that comes to mind was his face when he was born. He looked so perfect, and I really just remember the grumpy face, and it was so perfect, like, to see that emotion from him and for that to have been the emotion from him, because yeah, it was a really grumpy situation, but it was also just the most beautiful part and beautiful thing to see of him.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel, there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. This is, I'm very excited. This is a kind of a special little episode that I am looking forward to. Hailey reached out to us. She is the sister of the woman who gave birth to Declan. And she reached out to us and she really wanted to share her perspective because she felt like she was able to offer support and help. And I was like, yes, we need these kind of perspectives because this is so different. And we feel oftentimes helpless, right? When we're in these situations, we're like, what do I need to do? How can I support my friend, my daughter, my sister? How do I step up for them in these times of need? So Hailey, thank you. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for thinking about this. And thank you for being a support to your sister.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So this is going to be kind of a funny little podcast episode. We are going to do a little bit of a hybrid because Hailey is very much involved in her sister's life. And so I do want to kind of make it a little bit of a birth episode, but also asking some questions along the way. So that's what you're going to expect on this episode today. So Hailey, tell us a little bit about yourself and also maybe your relationship to your sister and how that's looked over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a chiropractor. I live here in Asheville, North Carolina. I was born and raised here, so was my sister. She now lives in Winston-Salem. But growing up, we were like every sister. We didn't love each other. Like, we loved each other, but we bickered. We were best friends when we were younger. It was that sister, younger sister dynamic. But I do remember there was a point around when I was a junior in high school and 11th grade, and I finally kind of made that maturity shift over to realize my sister actually was a really cool person. And it was about that time that we became very, very close. So she was already off at college, but she became kind of my outlet. We would text each other all the time, constantly talking. I remember always going to visit her and it just being the coolest thing ever because I was still in high school and she was in college. And from that point on, we really were just inseparable. We were just talking every single day, like truly telling each other everything. It was almost like my journal of a person that I would, everything that came to mind, whether it was like parent stuff, friend stuff, boy stuff, like just threw it all out at her. So we really walked and have been walking life together side by side, even being as far apart. I went off to Georgia for school and she was all the way up in North Carolina. And so there were obviously times where we didn't be in the same room together, but we were always communicating via text or call all the time. I can't even remember a day that we didn't text each other. So just all the time talking, very, very close. And I truly think that this experience made us a whole level closer. And there were just, I think that like the beauty in all of this is that we have been able to just become even closer as sisters. And so, and being able to be that person for her throughout this and try to take some of this pain away from her has just been a blessing in and of itself. So to this day, we are just very, very close and we talk all the time. And it's been just such an honor to walk with her on that first pregnancy, but then also to be able to hold her hand on this second pregnancy as well.
Yeah, that is, when you started describing your sisters, your relationship, I was like, oh yeah, that I can totally relate on those. It just is, like you just don't love each other necessarily when you're growing up with each other. And then you realize, oh my gosh, my family is super important. So
exactly.
What a cool, tight, like relationship you have. I think that's so great. So, so for her, was Declan her first or second pregnancy?
It was her first pregnancy. I do a lot of labs and blood work and things like that. So prior to this pregnancy, it was early 2023. She was like, okay, I'm ready to start preparing my body for it. So we did a bunch of labs, ran all the things for her and her husband and got her to a place where I was like, hey, yeah, you're showing great signs of health. Like you're performing well. Your hormones look good. Everything looks really great. I have no doubt that you'll be able to conceive. And our mother never struggled with infertility or anything like that. So had a lot of confidence going into it. And that fall is when they started trying. Okay. And it was maybe 2 months of trying and they fell pregnant.
Okay.
So it was a very, like we all hoped and thought that there wasn't going to be any struggle there, which was amazing. And yeah, her first trimester turned out to be pretty seamless. She obviously had a little bit of nausea here and there, but fatigue, but nothing too crazy, which was a blessing. When it was around Christmas that she announced and told all of us. She told me first after her husband, and it was kind of like, I say it was a moment from God that she'd been in close touch with me, like through her periods and if she got her period or whatever. And she had texted me like earlier that week. It was just before Christmas. And she was like, oh, dang it, I'm bleeding. It's really light though. And I remember seeing those words like, it's very light though. And I just thought, well, yeah, that's my sister. She's been like that before. So darn it, maybe next month. Well, then a few days later, we didn't see each other for Christmas this year because she was up with her in-laws. And a few days later, I had this like overwhelming feeling. It just came out of nowhere. And I was like, what if that light bleed was implantation bleeding?
Yeah.
And it just came over me and I was like, I think my sister's pregnant. And it was about the same day that she took the test that I had these same feelings. And a few days later, I was on my way back to Georgia and she was like, hey, I got to FaceTime you. And I was like, okay, yeah, go ahead. And she FaceTimes me and she sends me a picture and it's got the pregnancy test that says yes. And I just knew, I was like, I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was so, so excited. And, and she was like, yeah, you're going to be an aunt. And we were just, she took pictures and stuff and we've shared those pictures of just like my reaction and all of that. And we were just really, really excited. And, I had a feeling right from the beginning. I was like, I think he's a boy. But obviously it was a few weeks later before we found out, but I was like, I just feel like he's a boy. Like there was something about it. And that year I had also made a vision board and I had put on there a little boy. And, I had thought about that, and I was like, I don't know. I just have this feeling. And I don't think I found out for another 8 weeks later when we did the whole reveal. She had told me, so they found out the gender, and then they told me. And so I was in charge of making the cupcakes and stuff.
Gotcha.
Like the blue icing inside, and then the families were going to come together. And so when she told me, I was like, I knew it. And so right from the beginning, we were all just so excited. And I think if he knew anything throughout her pregnancy and when he was alive, he was so loved. And we were all just so excited. Yeah. And we still are. Like, there's been lots of things that have happened, and I'm always like, that's Declan, you know? But yeah, there was just, his pregnancy was just full of excitement. And we can get into this, but there were warning signs that we didn't think at the time were warning signs, and Hannah didn't think they were. But something like a big part of his story that even me and her spoke about in those early days after was we went on lots of walks. I don't know how she walked so soon postpartum, but we went on walks, and we just kept saying, we're like, you know, you can constantly ask why, and it can drive you crazy. And you can try to say like, oh, if we did this, if we did that, or why did this happen to us? And it can drive you insane. But we chose to take the other approach of, he wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to be on Earth. And with knowing that, there was nothing that we could have done to bring him here. This was his story. This was his life. And so that brought us a lot of peace because, you know, searching, just you're never going to get anywhere, and you can't change the outcome. So it really is settling in. That was those 36 weeks and 4 days. That was his life, and that was all that he was supposed to have.
Yeah.
So she had a very decent pregnancy for the most part. She's a smaller girl. She's like only 5'1".
Yeah. Okay. So she was probably showing very.
Yes. So being pregnant, I think it was about 20 weeks. She was like, my back's killing me. And being a chiropractor, we did everything we could to kind of help it, but there's only so much you can do. And I constantly told her, I was like, I'm sorry, the trigger is the baby, and until it gets out, your back's going to hurt. Like, I'm trying. And unfortunately, so she had, the back pain was the biggest thing. But other than that, like, very mild symptoms in the first trimester. She was still working out. She felt generally really good. Some days, you know, more tired than others, just like any pregnancy. And that was it. There was some warning signs that now when we look back, we think, okay, that maybe had something to attribute to something. But again, we always hold firm that we weren't supposed to save him. So it's, the way that she felt with those signs was exactly how she was supposed to feel. It was around 31 weeks. She had texted me and told me, I feel like his movements are less.
Okay.
And I remember, as a chiropractor, I know a lot about the human body. I know a lot about pregnancy. Yeah. And I remember saying, like, immediately I was laying in my bed and I was like, this gut feeling hit me. And I was like, ooh, you know, that's the biggest red flag. Your baby shouldn't slow down or change its patterns. And so, but I remember texting her and I was like, you're not her doctor. So don't start talking to her that way. So I really took a step back and I was like, well, how do you feel about this? Like, are you worried? Do you feel like this is something you need to go do something about? Like, how is this making you feel? I really didn't want to be like, hey, you need to go do something about this. This is wrong. Right. Because I immediately Reddited, and I went on Reddit and I was like, baby, and you're reading all the threads and, you know, some women saying they're like, yeah, that happened to me, but my baby was fine. So like, I was also trying to talk myself into being like, okay, nope, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
And I asked her, I was like, do you have a bad gut feeling about this? And she had responded and she was like, no. And I was like, then I think you're okay. Because the biggest thing is I was like, I truly believe if he was supposed to be saved, she would have had a feeling or some type of intuition. And she feels the same way. And it would have been like, hey, get to the hospital. Like something's going on. Yeah. And because she felt okay about it, I was like, all right, you know, you're going to see, she had an appointment in like a week or so after this. So I was like, when you go to that appointment, make sure you voice your concerns, and hopefully everything's okay. It was only a Doppler scan. It wasn't an ultrasound. So she went to that appointment. She had told the nurse in passing, so like the nurse that had brought her back, she was like, telling her, she's like, yeah, well, his movements are different and they kind of slowed down. And that nurse kind of dismissed her. And so that was something our whole family was very, very angry about. But again, we couldn't change the outcome. And she did the Doppler and they found his heartbeat. So that gave us all peace of mind, like, okay, he's okay. And so the next and again, we didn't think anything of this until after the fact. The next couple of weeks went by. She had her baby shower. Was actually a really important weekend. And it was because I think my perspective of this, and I think Hannah feels similar to it, but my perspective was his baby shower was the celebration of his life, because that day had some things that happened that when I found out the news and I was driving to see her and I was listening to your podcast, I had heard other women say like, oh, this happened to me. And immediately when I heard these stories and I connected it to my sister, I was like, oh my gosh, was that the moment? And we didn't realize it. And so the day of her baby shower, it was the same weekend as my mom's birthday, and we were all in town. We were super excited. I'd picked out my blue dress, and we were having it at her house, and all her friends were coming into town. It was just girls, we were gonna do games and all that stuff. And so it was a beautiful weather. Like, we couldn't have asked for better. It was the end of July.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was 34 weeks and some days at this point.
Okay.
She was showing, and it was just perfect. She had her dress picked out. Her theme was woodland characters, and his animal was foxes. And so we had all of that set up. It was so cute, and just I baked cupcakes again. We had a caterer, and it was just a great day. All of her friends showed up, and we were all just mingling, chatting, eating. And there was a moment where I looked over and Hannah was sitting on the couch, and I was like, huh. So I walk over to her and I was like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I just feel nauseous. And I remember being like, oh, okay. Like, did you not eat enough today? How much protein have you had? Because, it's so important, especially in that last trimester. I was like, have you had any protein today? She's like, yeah, I had a little bit this morning, but I just feel really nauseous. And for her, that was weird. Like, she really hadn't felt nauseous since the first and second trimester. So it was like, I just remember being like, this is weird. But I was kind of wrapped up in the moment, and so I was like, well, or she asked me to go get her nausea lollipops that she had from the first trimester. So I was like, okay. So I go grab them for her. I give them to her, and then it was time. We kind of got wrapped up in everything, and it was time for her to open the gifts and play some of the games. So it seemed like she felt better. I think I remember seeing her eat a little bit more. So I think the nausea kind of passed. I don't remember asking, but I think she started to feel better. Okay. After the fact, everyone left. We were tearing things down. She was tired, but again, I just don't remember like talking to her much about like, oh, do you feel any better or anything like that. So there was one thing that happened to me that evening, and we were upstairs in his nursery, like putting away some of the new gifts and stuff. And then they went downstairs and I was upstairs, and I was just in the nursery, and I was overcome with like emotion. And on such a happy day, I was in tears. And I look back at this now and I was like, this was me mourning his loss. And I was crying because I was thinking about a life without Declan. And I was like, why am I thinking about this? Like, why did that come to my mind? And I was thinking about like how horrible it would be if I couldn't be in his life. And I just remember, looking back, I was like, wow, like something lined up in those moments of that day. And of course, the moment didn't think anything of it, but I cried and then got over it, went downstairs, and I think we watched a movie that night. Hannah was tired, and I just thought like, oh, she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So we go to bed. We wake up the next day, and Hannah really isn't looking too good. Like, she's feeling that great, and but she's kind of just slow moving. We left early that afternoon because we had to get back to Asheville, so I just kind of deemed it as, oh, okay, she's having a more tired day. Yeah. And that's how she explained it, is how she said to us that morning. But when I got home later that day, she was texting me and she was like, I feel like a truck hit me. Like, I feel the worst I felt this entire pregnancy. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to work tomorrow. She's like, I'll see how I feel when I wake up in the morning. And I was like, well, are you getting sick? Like, what's going on? Like, that's so weird. And she was like, I don't know, but I feel like just a truck hit me. And when we look back, and me and her have talked about this, I was like, I wonder if that was the hormone drop and maybe he passed the day before. Yeah. The next day was kind of that hormone drop that women get after they give birth. And we're not sure, when she found out, doctors were like, we don't know how long he's been gone. But for me, at least for me, I feel like that was what happened, or maybe around the same time. And so when I think about his baby shower, it really was, to me, like a celebration of his life. And I think it was so beautiful that so many people could come together that day and celebrate him. And and I really think, like, when we look back, we're like, that was weird, and maybe that was something. So the next 2 weeks, so from that weekend, the weekend that we found out all the news, I was supposed to come up there and we were going to start prepping like postpartum meals and labor snacks and all of that. So I was already planning to come up in a couple weeks. So the next couple of weeks, she felt better that next day on Monday, went to work and just kind of went on with life. Okay. As it was. She did, it was not the direct week after her baby shower, but the week leading up to finding out the news. Mm-hmm. There was a day and she took a Snapchat and she was sitting on the couch playing with her belly. And she was trying to find him and trying to be like, hey, kick me back, playing games. Mm-hmm. And nothing was happening. And she just, she had sent a snap and was like, I can't find my baby. Like, just something funny. And her stomach was really, really squishy. And she thought, she kind of was like, that's kind of weird, but maybe he was sleeping or something. And that was the Wednesday before. And she had sent me that snap and saved it as well. And, we have dark humor about everything to kind of help us get through. Yeah. And she sent that to me this year and was like, well, this didn't age well. And we were like, no. So that was that day. And again, we didn't think anything of it. And the day, then Friday came, and this was August 9th. And I, that day, was headed down to Georgia because I had an orthodontist down there. So I had moved back to North Carolina at this point, but I still went down there to deal with my down in Georgia. So that day I had an appointment, and I was making my way to Georgia. And she texted me. She had an early appointment at I want to say it was 8:15 or something. And so she had texted me and was like, hey, I'm in the waiting room. Of course, this is taking forever, and whatever. And I was like, well, let me know how it goes. This was going to be an ultrasound appointment. Okay. So I was like, oh, I'm so excited to see him. Just let me know how it goes. And I was 10 minutes away from the ortho office. And I get a text and she goes, you're going to have to turn around and come to Winston. And I immediately text her back and I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, are you going into labor? Is he coming early? Because at this point she was 36 weeks and 3 days. And I was like, okay, really, but it's possible. So I was like, oh, are you going into labor? And we laugh about this now, but the text that I received back was just so blunt. And it was, there's no heartbeat. He died. And I remember in that moment, just shock. I read that and I say over and over, I had 10 minutes from that point to the ortho office, and I don't condone looking at your phone and driving, but in those 10 minutes, something grabbed onto my car and got me there because I don't remember driving in those 10 minutes because it was like everything hit. And when she said that, I was like, no, what are you talking about? How is that? What? He can pass at 36. What? And I was like, they must be wrong. Maybe they need to get him out or whatever. Maybe he's in distress. And she's like, no, we've been doing the ultrasound. They've been sitting here and they can't find anything. And I just was like, I honestly had never heard of the term stillborn.
Right.
I mean, I heard it, but it just kind of went in one ear, out the other. And I just didn't think, I thought when mothers lose their babies, it's in that first trimester, never later on. And, that was my blissful ignorance of pregnancy. And I just didn't, I was like, what is this? Like, is this a thing? And in those 10 minutes, I was trying to communicate back and forth to her, but obviously she was, accompanied by all the doctors and getting Derek there, her husband. I just remember I was like, well, call me, please call me when you can. Because I, obviously was driving, and I was like, I can't really sit here and get myself to one place to another safely. And she had been texting me like, I'm going to need you to text some friends. And I was like, absolutely, like whatever I can do. I knew in that moment, I was like, if there's anything that I can do, because the shock was still there, but I was like, I can't change this pain that she's suddenly feeling right now, or the loss of her child. But what I can do is try to prevent more pain from happening, like having to text her friends, or the biggest thing was calling our parents. And so she said to me, she was like, can you call mom and dad? And this was a really hard phone call, and I'm really glad that I did it and not her. And I don't even know if I've talked to her about the phone call, but I was like, absolutely. And so in this moment, it was still shock. Everything was shock. I was shaking. I was cold. I wasn't crying, because I was just like, what is going on? Like, just could not comprehend. I called my mom, and I was like, hey, mom. She's like, hey, like she's happy as could be. I was like, I don't have good news. And she's like, what's going on? And I was like, Hannah had an appointment this morning, and Declan is gone. I was like, Declan's dead. And the scream that came out of her mouth was the most gut-wrenching thing that I've ever heard. And in that moment, it like just smacked me, and it became reality. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. And I couldn't, she was just obviously beside herself. And I, for my own personal selfishness, I was like, I can't keep hearing this. Like, it's too much. And so I was like, I love you, but I gotta go. I'm almost at the orthodontist. Like, I think Hannah's gonna try to call us. I'll keep you up to date with everything as I can. So I hang up. Furthermore, she goes and tells my dad. What's crazy is something that I always say, like, you never know what someone's going through. And so that's where I've really taken that to heart over this past year of like, be kind to everyone you interact with, because you just do not know what someone's going through. And it was a few months later after this, I was treating a patient, and he asked me, he was like, oh, how's your sister doing? And I was like, I knew a lot of people knew, but I was like, oh yeah, she's doing fine. And he's like, how's your dad? And I was like, I think he's doing fine. And he's like, yeah, that day, I was there. And I was like, what? And he was like, your dad was sitting outside on a bench, and I was coming there. I guess he was doing something with our pool or something electrical. And he's like, I've never seen your dad like that before. And it was one of those things where I was like, wow, like he was there in that moment. He didn't know what he was walking up to, but just, and that affecting him so much. And for me, it was, now I have to go into this orthodontist appointment. Obviously, I look like I've been crying my eyes out. And I go in, I check in, and Hannah finally calls me. So I step outside, and I was talking to her, and she seemed okay, which was like good, but obviously she wasn't. But we were able to have a conversation, and she was like telling me, she's like, yeah, they told me to take my time and go to the hospital. And I was like, take your time? Like, don't you got to get it out? Like, what do you mean take your time? And she was like, yeah, I mean, I guess I can take all the time I need before. And I just was like, that bewildered me. But I was like, I guess it makes sense. Like, if he hasn't been alive for a while now, you've been fine. So, and she kind of explained, like, the amniotic fluid, the baby might look a little funny, and whatnot. So she's like, I'm going to go home and shower and pack a bag and go to the hospital. Okay. I want to get this started as soon as possible, the induction. And she was like, you don't have to rush here. Take your time getting back to Asheville, and then take your time getting back up to here. I don't think he's going to be born till tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And so I just told her, I was like, I'm texting everyone. I was like, do you want to see those messages, or do you want me to hold those for you for some, or, wait? And she's like, I'll wait. And then she let me know like different people to talk to. And she's like, I'm going to try to call mom and dad in here in a few minutes. And then we hung up, and I was like, I remember asking her just like, but haven't you been feeling him move? Like, what? And she's like, apparently it was, what I was feeling was just gravity moving him around. Oh. So, because she was like, I felt movement, like that's something she'd said to them, and they were like, it was most likely just gravity. Oh. And so I was like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, do they have a reason or anything? And she's like, they don't know. Like, they don't have a reason. Okay. I love you. I'll talk to you as soon as possible. So I go back and I'm getting my teeth cleaned or fixed or whatever they did, the water or something. And tears just streaming down my face. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, this poor girl, like this poor woman has no clue. Yeah. And obviously I'm in distress, and they just treated me with so much kindness. Like, they didn't ask, they weren't like, oh, what's going on? Like, they were very much just like, let's get the job done. Clearly you're in distress, and this isn't the place you need to be right now. So they were very respectful, got me in and out very quick. And when I got in the car, it was kind of like, I remember sitting there and like taking a deep breath and putting in the, address to get back home. And I was like, all right, here we go. We're about to step into probably the worst weekend of our lives. And I was starting to drive, and I had told some of my close friends, I was like, Hannah, is it okay if I tell some of my close friends? She's like, yeah, that's fine. And so one of my best friends that I had told, she had lost her father when she was like 13. And so it was just such a full circle, not a good full circle moment, but I had been able to be there for her. And she called me right away when I got in the car and was just like, you just got to breathe, do whatever you can to just breathe, be there for her the best that you can. It's going to be okay in the end. And it was really helpful to me to just hear her voice. And then immediately when I got in the car, I was like, well, I got a 6-hour drive ahead of me, 3.5 to Asheville, 2.5 to Winston. So I was like, this can't be the first time this has happened. So that's immediately when I started looking in podcasts. I was like, maybe there's someone who's talked about this before or something. And I had no idea what this was. And so I started searching, and that's when I came across your podcast. And I just saw all these stories, and I was like, well, like, I don't know what I'm about to walk into. I don't think anyone does. I was like, I don't think this type of loss is natural by any means. And so none of us are ready for this or expecting this or told from anyone what's, so I was like, all right, like, I guess I need a picture painted for me about what's about to happen. And I think I listened to about 3 or 4 stories, and it was brutal because I was going through it. So I was like, this is hitting me so personally. I cried the whole 6 hours just listening to these stories, but it painted a picture of what's about to happen. And furthermore, what those mothers needed. And so at least for me, I could say, okay, these mothers said, like, make sure pictures was one of them. I was like, okay, I got to make sure there's a photographer. Let the mother have time, whether that be to bathe the baby or swaddle the baby. I learned about a cuddle cot. I learned about some hospitals have like special boxes and get fingerprints and footprints. Yeah. And all of these different things. And I was able to really be like, okay, she's not going to know what she needs because she has no clue what she's walking into. So now that I know this, I can be an advocate for her to say, okay, let's get photos. Let's make sure you get the footprints and the handprints. Let's give you as much time as we can give you. I felt so blessed because in a lot of these stories that I heard, like, family wasn't involved in some of these stories where it was just the husband and the wife and the mom and the dad. And I was like, wow, like, I really do feel so lucky that she wants us there. And I just was like, all right, this is what's about to happen. So I had a better understanding and a picture, and I was really the only one because I know my parents didn't listen to anything, and Hannah obviously wasn't, listening to podcasts at this point about this. She was just trying to go through the motions of this all. And I had gotten back to Asheville. I took a shower, packed a bag, and I wrote a letter to her, and I wrote a letter to Declan. And I still have my letter for Declan, but I gave her my letter later when she got home from the hospital. And it was just such authentic feelings of like, I don't know what's going on. I know you don't know what's going on, but we will be okay. And that was just kind of my approach, was like, we have to figure out what is positive about this situation, or we are going to just crumble, because this is so horrible. And the next 2.5 hours, I think I listened to another story. Those stories, as hard as they were to listen to, were so comforting, because it was like, oh, okay, like, we're not the only ones going through this. We have this advice and this like painted picture, and it just was like, I don't know, there was a wave of comfort about it, so that I felt a little more confident about what I was about to step into. So I get to the hospital, and I was dreading it, honestly. I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to do this, but here we are. I was prepared. I was like, I'm about to have the worst next couple of days, but my whole family's here. It's going to be okay. And my dad came and picked me up where I parked at the hospital, and took me up to the room. And it was the moment Hannah was, strapped in the heart monitor around her belly and stuff. And the moment I walked in there, it was just like floodgate of tears. And it was so sad, because I was like, you look like you're about to give birth, and you should have, but it wasn't what, we wanted. And the next couple of hours, we were just sitting at the hospital, and there would be moments where we're talking like everything's normal. And then there were moments where it was kind of like waves for her of like, I'm okay. And then there was a wave of just like the pain and the thoughts, and she would just lose it. And, obviously all of us sitting in there, it just like was like knives inside of you, where you just hear her like losing it, and you're like, like, there's nothing you can do. And we sat there for a couple hours, and then finally it was like, all right, like, let's go to bed. I think it was midnight when we left. I was like, let's go to, like, obviously he's not being born tonight. I don't think she even started the whatever it is to really soften the cervix fully yet. I think she started that early morning, because the other side of this was they didn't, or I don't know, maybe they started a really mild cervix softener, and then they were going to amp it up in the morning, because they were like, we really want to make sure we progress this well, because we don't want to cause any unfavorable, birth outcomes. And I remember she, for her, it was like, I listened to a bunch of these stories, and some women were like, I want to feel the pains of labor. I want to do that for my child. Or, the different ways they wanted to go about it. But for Hannah, it was like, I don't want to feel any pain at all. And, at the end of the day, I was like, we're not changing the outcome. So, for you, make it as pain-free as possible, because the pain of losing your child is the worst bearable pain. At least you won't have to take labor pains with you as well, hopefully. So she had voiced that to them, like, yes, I want an epidural as soon as possible. Like, I want this, and they even pumped her with, I think, other meds that
to help
you wouldn't want in labor for a live baby.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But since it was a past baby, they're like, we're not changing the outcome. So even though these meds aren't good for a baby, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So she was able to, I think, when the mild cramp starting other medication and then the epidural. But that night we left, and it was so hard, because every time I had seen Hannah pregnant, I had my goal, because I wanted, I knew that babies hear things when they're in the womb. And I was like, okay, how can I be the favorite aunt? And my idea was, I have to make her laugh. Every time I'm with her, I have to make her laugh, and laugh a ton, because then Declan will always associate me with happy feelings, because when he laughs, it elicits serotonin and makes him really happy, makes her really happy. So I was like, all right, I got to make her laugh. Like, so he'll know I'm positive, and he'll love me most. And so that was always something that I did. And even that night, I think I think that was something that I knew of me. I was like, I walk around and my motto is make it your mission to make someone smile or laugh today. And so that was something that I carried really heavy when I helped my best friend go through the loss of her dad was I can't take this pain away from you, but I can make you laugh. And if I can make you laugh in this darkest of darkest times, then I know you're going to be okay. And so I think even that evening, like, you know, dark humor, like just who I am, like I made Hannah laugh.
Yeah.
To me, I was like, all right, she's going to be okay. Like we can get through this. And it was my last little bit of something I could give to Declan. And every time I had left Hannah when she was pregnant, I would like squeeze her stomach a little bit. So I'd kind of like push it a little and be like, bye, Declan, and like say bye to him. And like, you know, just like grab him a little.
Yeah.
And usually I never felt anything back just because she was standing up or whatever. But it was just my way of being like, hey, bye, buddy. And that night I gave her a hug and I squeezed him one last time. And I was like, bye, buddy. And I knew like it was never going to happen again. And I think that's really important for this newer pregnancy. But I went home. It was really hard. I slept. She had a twin bed in the nursery because her plans were when nights are tough and one of us needs to, you know, be in here, we can just sleep on the bed so we don't have to go back and forth. So I slept in the nursery. And I remember that night, like, I just like sat there and was like, this is horrible. And I had looked through, you know, she had almost completely set up and I was looking through like his toys and his books. And I remember I had gotten him this little stuffed animal fox, and I was like, this is going to be his favorite stuffed animal. And obviously he was never going to get it. And I had also gotten him a book. And I remember like how excited I was to read him a book. And so that night I sat on this super nice nursery chair she had, and I held on to my little fox and I read Declan a book. And it was so hard. And then somehow went to sleep. The next day was really, like, you knew he was going to be born today. And the whole morning was really tough. I had my waves of emotion where I'd be okay, and then it would hit me, and it was same for the whole household. It was my parents, her mom-in-law and father-in-law, and then me. Our brother, he came up on Sunday, so the day after he was born. He didn't feel like he could see that and not pass out or feel sick, and we honored that. We were like, that is completely fine. But he was like, I want to come up on Sunday and be there with you guys. And so that whole morning was very, like, weird. And it was just a bunch of us texting back and forth. I had actually woken up to a text from her at, like, 3 a.m. She had woken up, and she texted me. And it was just, it was like, why is this happening to me? Just, like, her words coming out. And I told her, I said, Hannah, whatever you need to say it. Like, say what you need to text to me. Say what you need to say to me. Let me be that outlet. Like, nothing is too hard. Nothing is too much. Like, just if you need somewhere to put it into the universe, say it. I'll be fine. And I put it in me. I was like, all morning, you know, every text was like, I'm proud of you, Hannah. Like, you're going to do great. Like, I love you. And she was texting me, you know, everything that was happening. There was one point where the contractions had started to pick up, like, in her back, and so they started the epidural, and like I said, as pain-free as possible. There was at one point where she got, I think her blood sugar dropped really low or something. She got really, like, nauseous and threw up, and then 10 minutes later texted me and was like, well, that was kind of scary. And I was like, okay, are you okay? But my prayer that whole morning was, God, if Declan's gone, and that is what it is, please protect my sister. Like, please do not take her with him. And so I think it was like 12-13 is when he was born. So she was texting me all the way up into it. And then she was like, all right, they're telling me it's time, like, in the next couple of minutes to start pushing. And so I was kind of the relayer of information to the family. And this is something, looking back as like an advice point, I wish that I could have been stronger, but I also wish that it would have been a conversation that the family had of, let's honor her time in the hospital before we rush there.
Yeah.
When we got the news of she was starting to push, it was like, get in the car, drive to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I felt weird about that. And I was like, well, maybe we should wait. Like, like, I don't think we're going to go right in there right when she, delivers. I was like, I think it's going to be a minute. But they were all, we got to get there. So I was like, okay. So we get there, and the whole car ride was crying and just thinking like, oh, like, all right, we're going to see him soon. And, obviously in the back of my head, I'm thinking a miracle. Somehow he's going to be born alive. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I guess it was just like some form of hope that I was holding on to of like, no, they're going to be wrong and something's going to happen. And I had even asked her, I think I was like, when she got to the hospital, I was like, so do you think that he might still be alive? And she's like, Hailey, she's like, I thought so too for a minute, but they've done the ultrasound, like there's no heartbeat. And I was like, it was just like, you just have that hope.
Yes.
And it, the inevitable. But so we were driving to the hospital, we get there, we go up, obviously we can't go in the room. So we're all in the waiting room. And this was horrible. We're all sitting there crying, and a family comes in, and they're a pregnant mom, and she's in labor, and she's about to give birth, and they're looking at us, and we're looking at them. And I remember they were very kind of like confused, like, why is this family so in distress? And then they're, happy because they're about to meet their next baby. And I remember just being like, this is so wrong. Like, we should not be in the same room as these people. Because one, like, for their sake, I don't want that mother to look at us and have stress as she's about to go into labor. That's not healthy for her. I don't want this family to have any of their day to be, not what they're hoping. Or I don't want them to be like, ask us a question and be like, oh, what's going on? And then we're like, oh, well, she's about to give birth to a baby that's not alive. Like, I don't want them to have any doubt in what's about to happen. And so it just felt very wrong. And then finally, a nurse picked up on what was going down and was like, hey, we have a room back here for you guys. And I was like, thank goodness, because this is not good. And so they took us back to the separate room, and her room was also separated from any labor and delivery mothers because this isn't their first situation. And they were like, we know to put them in a removed area. And so we went back into that room, and we were just waiting. And I think we had gotten there at like maybe 11:30-ish. So we were just waiting, and her doula came in once Declan was born. And she kind of talked to us a little bit and was telling us, like, he's beautiful. He does look a little different just because of the amniotic fluid, a little bit on his face, a little bit on his body, but for the most part, he's intact. And she said, she was like, he has the cutest little nose, and he's got like the brown curly hair, and kind of helping us to paint a picture. She didn't show us any pictures because she was like, not, you guys need to go see him for the first time. And I want to say it was like maybe 15 minutes after she delivered, she texted me and was like updating me. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I didn't tell the family that I was so in touch with her, just because I didn't want them to feel like upset that they weren't being, so up to date with her. And I kind of had said some things like, I had like asked her like, well, can I tell them this or can I say this? And she was like, sure, or whatever, to update them. But she was spending her time with him, and her and Derek, their one-on-one time with him after he was born. She was just telling me like, yeah, he looks cute, or telling me how the labor went. She's like, yeah, it went good. There was a joke and something we laugh about. She was like, you know how women say that after giving birth, it's like running a marathon? She was like, I don't know what they're talking about, because that was the easiest thing I've ever done. And I was like, good. I was like, all right.
Yep.
I was like, honestly, if that can be the best, like a positive thing that you went through, thank goodness, because, it could have been a completely different story. So I was like, I am so glad that you think that was so easy.
Yeah.
Not much pain. She didn't She didn't tear, nothing. It was just very seamless. And that gives us a lot of hope for this next birth too. And they say it too. They're like, usually your births will mimic each other to some extent. You never know, but hopefully. So I just remember she saying that and me just being like, all right, like, cool, like, awesome. Finally, she was like, I was like, can I come meet him? And she's like, yeah, she's like, I feel really bad, but I want you and mom and dad to come first. She felt really guilty with her in-laws, but she was like, I think you guys should come separate because it's separate families and just to have that. And then she's like, we'll come all together afterwards. But she's like, I do really want you and mom and dad to come first. I want to say it was maybe an hour after she gave birth, we were brought back. And this is something that, like, I know, I kind of mentioned on was like, I wish we would have taken more time and I wish we wouldn't have rushed to the hospital because I feel like that put a pressure on her to bring us back and not be like, oh, they have to wait in this room for so long. Because when I look back at it, like that was the time she had with her son. And that was the only time she was ever going to have with her son. And I felt like an extent is we took that time away from her, but I also am like, we are all so grateful and so blessed that we got to be there and meet him. And I know that warmed her heart so much to be able to see us in our true raw reactions and just us to be around him. And so when we walked into that room, he was beautiful. He was perfect. He looked like a full baby, which was just so devastating because I was like, she was 36 weeks, 4 days, but he had stopped. They said he looked like he had stopped growing past like 33, 34 weeks. Okay. So he was only about 4 pounds, but he looked like a full baby. Yeah. And I was like, what? And he had the brown curly hair. It was wet. So we weren't sure like what color it would have turned to. He was so grumpy. His face was so grumpy. He had the cutest little nose, a big forehead, his lips, his mouth was stuck in a like open position and then you could control it to go closed, but that was just because of everything. Yeah. He was a little floppy and it was just because of when they had to pull him out, the doctor had to pull pretty hard on his neck just because she had to get him out. She didn't want Hannah to tear. And the other aspect was he wasn't able to help wiggle himself out. Yeah. So she's like, so I had to pull a little harder. So he was a little floppy because of that. But he had the perfect, 10 toes, 10 fingers, perfect little body. He did lose a lot of skin. He's pretty red throughout his abdomen and on his face. He had a red patch. But for the most part, I remember at first, like, I was kind of scared. Yeah. Just because I was like, whoa. And then, and I was kind of afraid to hold him. But then immediately she offered us to hold him. And she gave him to my dad. And he just cried. And it was I took pictures as best I could, and that was just gut-wrenching to see. And then she let me hold him, and it was just, he weighed he was light, but he was like a baby, and I just remember kissing his forehead, and I kept saying, like, because I felt like in these coming months, I felt very guilty for some of these signs and not pressing harder. And so I just remember saying to him, like, I'm so sorry, buddy. And a part of that too was I couldn't protect him, and I couldn't give him everything I wanted to give him so badly and that I had envisioned and planned. And so I was like, I'm so sorry, Declan. And holding him was just so special, and meeting him and just painting a picture of what he would have looked like. Yeah. And allowing us to kind of imagine him as a toddler and his hair and all those different things. And something that really stuck out to me was his smell. Mm-hmm. That was something that, smell holds memories. Yes. And
I just remembered like holding him so closely, and that brought me so much comfort in those next couple of days because I was wearing the sweatshirt and his smell got onto it. So like later when I went home, I could still smell him, and it just brought me like so much comfort. And so then we left, and his in-laws came in, and then we all joined the room. And the hospital actually had a photographer that they work with a company. So that photographer came a little bit later, and she took all of the pictures. This was a really great hospital. They had a whole box ready for her. The nurses were incredible. One of the nurses had gone through this experience before with a close friend. And so I felt like she really knew how to help Hannah in those moments. The nurses actually made little bracelets that said, I think like Mama, Dad, and Declan, small enough to fit on his wrist, which was really special and really just so kind of them. I could tell one of the nurses, I think this was her first situation like this, and it was pretty traumatic for her, but the other one was really, really great, and she could have some sort of like experience, which was awesome, which I mean, not awesome. I don't want anyone to go through that, but it was good that she, could help in ways and knew how to an extent. They had to do x-rays of him at one point, and that took forever. And then we were transferred up to labor and delivery. And we had this beautiful room up there. And so he was in the cuddle cot, and when she was being transferred up there, she was holding him. And I just remember being like, let me take a picture of you. Like, this is, your moment holding your baby. And I thought she looked great. I was like, you look amazing considering. She was wheeled upstairs, put in her bed, and as the epidural was wearing off, and Declan went in the cuddle cot, and we all just kind of sat in the room, and we got dinner, and we just kind of were there with him and talking. And it came to a point where, and then she had the chaplain of the hospital come in and do a prayer, and we baptized him, and that was really special. And then they started asking questions about like, well, what do you want to do with him? Because I guess the hospital needed to know by the time she left, like, what are we doing with the body? And that was, just hard. And her doula took that upon herself and was like, let me call some of these places for you, and I'll give you some information for each of them, so then I'll relay it, and you can just pick which one you want him to go to. And so she went and did that, and it was coming around like 6:00, and I remember just sitting there and being like, we need to leave. Like, we need to go, and we need to go because as selfish as we all wanted to be and spend all the time we could with him, I just kept thinking in the back of my head from the stories that I heard, I was like, this is her only time with her son. Yes, this is our only time with our nephew, their grandson, but we will never know the amount of pain that she is feeling from the loss of her child. We didn't feel him for 9 months. We only sometimes felt kicks and things like that. So as hard as this is for us, I was like, this is just so much harder for her, and she needs time with him. And so I took it upon myself. I was like, we're leaving. Like, I kind of said to the family, I was like, it's time for us to go. Like, we need to go. Like, we need to say our goodbyes, and it's time to just let Hannah and Declan and Derek have their night together and just have this one night together. And so we, again, kind of separated. So my parents went in, and then her in-laws went in after. And it just sucked, like, saying goodbye to him. And I just remember again, like, there was a part of me that so badly just, like, wanted to take him and, like, go. Yeah. Just go. He's fine. And a big part of me just wanted, like, alone time with him, but I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I can't be that selfish. But I sat there with him one last time, and I just remember saying, like, Declan, I promise that I'll protect your mom. I'm so sorry. And just, I love you. And I gave him one last kiss and squeeze, and that was it. That was the last time that I saw him. And then we all left, and I was really happy that we left when we did, because it gave her the whole evening, the whole night, and then all the time she needed in the morning. And she was sending me pictures, like they had taken some selfies together, and, dark humor, and like, oh, the only selfie we'll ever have with our kid, like things like that, where it's like, oh. And there was at one point, she had told me that she had fallen asleep with him on her. And Derek, like, he either had like woken up, or he just let her, he just let her fall asleep with him, because he was like, she needs this. And then at one point, like, I guess maybe he fell asleep, or he was still awake, and he kind of like woke Hannah up, because he wanted him to go back on the cuddle cot, just so he wouldn't like start to disrupt or whatever. But I remember her telling me, like, just how good that felt to have him there, and just like have that moment. She was like, just to be able to hold my baby and feel him. And she took lots of pictures, and just had the night with him. And I know that it was probably the hardest night of her life. And the next morning, she wanted us to bring her boy mama shirt. And she has a picture of her with her boy mama shirt, holding him and Derek. And obviously they don't look that happy, but they tried to be as happy as they could, just so she could have that photo, that real raw moment of like, I'm his mom. And then she said bye. And that, I wasn't there, obviously, but that just tears me apart. Just the thought of her walking away from her child. And I know that was so hard for her. And I know that that's something I want no one to have to go through, because how gut-wrenching. And she had told us, she's like, please get everything baby out of my sight when I come home. So we had frantically that night when we came back, and in the morning, gotten everything out of the living room that she had set up, in her bedroom, in the bathroom. Like, we just took it all down and put it away. We put it in the nursery and just kind of shut the door, because we were like, we don't know when she's going to want to go in there. And she said, that's fine. She's like, just put it in there. Just get it out of my sight when I get home. And I remember she had some ultrasound photos of him on the fridge, and I took them, and selfishly for myself, I took them. I gave them back to her later, but I took them, and I just kind of sat with them and just held them for me to have and to look at. And we got everything gone. And when she came home, it was different than we expected. I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen, but she seemed to be in okay spirits that next day. She decided, the hospital had said, like, you can be there as long as you want. And she was like, yeah, I think I'm ready. And so she left. She got home around 12 on Sunday the next day. She went and took a shower, and I think she had gotten out of the shower, and so her milk was starting to come in, like, not entirely, but she was getting really swollen and tight. And so she had put on like a sports bra and just felt so constricted. Yeah. And she was like, I just felt like I was having like a panic attack. Like I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And I remember we were all downstairs. Derek was downstairs, and she texted him, and next thing I know, I see Derek sprinting upstairs. So then my alarm goes off, and I was like, is Hannah okay? Like, what's going on? And of course, I'm thinking worst case scenario. So then I kind of run up behind him to kind of be like, just to hear. And, she was fine. She came downstairs. She was kind of laughing about it. She's like, oh, it was just really tight. I thought like it was like constricting my breath, but I realized it was more of like, it was just so tight. And then I was having like kind of like a panic attack about it. And she spent the afternoon with everyone. And I think, maybe a part of her was in shock that day. And so just kind of numb to everything. So she seemed okay. And we, my brother got there, and we all just kind of talked and sat outside and really talked about everything. I mean, anything that she was thinking, we spoke on. And it wasn't like, hey, you don't need to hide your feelings. You don't need to hide how you feel. Like, just talk. Like, it's okay. And that was something that she had said to me was super helpful for her, was being honest about our emotions.
Yeah.
So like when my parents saw him and just crying their eyes out, she's like, yes, that was so hard for me to see, but that also was so comforting to know how much he was loved.
Yeah.
That hurt you guys so much. Like I just knew like, wow, he's so loved.
Yeah.
And even in the coming weeks, like there were things that happened and I would just be honest with her. And she really appreciated that. She was like, those emotions, like, yes, it was hard for me to hear that, but it just made me realize that his life wasn't worthless. Like that it really was such an impact on so many people.
Yeah.
And that day was hard. And then my parents left later that evening and she had asked me to stay as long as I could before I really needed to go back to work. So I pushed back my patients as far back as I could. Yeah. So I stayed till that Tuesday. And I remember Sunday night after everybody left, there was a moment where me and Hannah just sat on the couch and we just looked at all the photos together and we just cried. Yeah. And like, it was just really special to sit there and just both be so sad, but also like, just like, all right, like he was here, like we had that time with him. We have these photos, like it was just special. And, the next couple of days were hard. It was hard to be there. It was hard to, watch her wake up and just be crying. And we would try to go for walks, but I think she felt pretty good physically.
Right.
So she thought she could do a lot more than she could, but like we'd go for a walk and it would be, maybe 0.2 in and she'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking I'm not ready for this. And then we'd sit down. But physically she felt okay. And that was really just another blessing in and of it all, because the ultimate pain that she was feeling, I didn't want her to have physical pain on top of that. They had given her, because as her milk was coming and like everything was getting swollen, she chose that she didn't want to breastfeed at all. She wanted to just stop the process. So with that, they did a progesterone shot to help stop the prolactin.
Yeah.
And then she did the cabbage and all of that to just suppress it. Don't let it even happen. She did get a little bit and she made a ring out of it. And maybe a necklace too, but I know she made a little milk ring. So she collected some of it. There was just enough. And she sent it off to someone who makes jewelry, like little rings. And I thought she'll put it with her wedding ring and it's so pretty. Oh. But she didn't want to breastfeed. So I think it was a couple days. By like Wednesday or Thursday, it stopped. And she was like, oh, okay, it doesn't hurt as much anymore. It's better. So she never breastfed at all. And yeah, those next couple of days were really hard, but we just kind of were together. We talked a lot. We spoke all the words that we could speak. And then I had to leave, and leaving them was really hard. But it was also like I felt for my own grief and my own recovery, I needed to go be away from this space. Yeah. And she also knew, she's like, with you here, I feel like it kind of puts a little bit of a blanket on top of the grief I'm about to go through. Yeah. And so she's like, I know that you need to leave so I can go sit in silence and really just feel these pains that I'm going to go and feel and that I need to work through. And so we were like, because I would have stayed as long as she needed me to, but we both knew like, yeah, we gotta face reality. Yeah. I went home. And the next couple of weeks were really tough. We were starting to tell patients, but it was so beautiful to see how supportive the community was and just how much of an impact he made. We'd tell certain people, moms, women, and they would just burst right out into tears. And it just, because they can relate on a mother level of like, oh my gosh. And just, something that we'd always said, sometimes people like to say, I can't imagine. And really the words are, you don't want to imagine. Right, exactly. And we don't want you to imagine either, because nobody should have to go through this. Some people didn't have words. Some people, and really, what are the words that you say to something like this? Yes. And so a lot of people, they didn't know how to approach the situation, and that was okay. Something that I knew that Hannah really needed was just to know that you were thinking about her.
Yeah.
I made it a point, because we text all every single day, to just every day ask her, how are you today?
Yeah.
And just let her put her emotion out however she needed to, no matter how hard I knew it was going to be what she might say. I just was like, whatever you need to say. And I made sure to ask her, how are you today? Because if no one else was, I knew she needed that. And that was something that she really needed from even her friends. She's like, the things that meant the most to me were the friends who would just reach out every couple of days and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let me know what you need. How are you? Whatever it was. Some people wrote her hand letters, different things, and just, she got a meal train, so she had tons and tons of food, lots of flowers. She took time off of work, and so it really was just, moving through the process. And it was August when this happened, so very quickly the holidays were coming around.
Yeah.
And I think that was something we were all really dreading, just because they were supposed to look different than what they were. And I remember a big part of grief, at least for me, was anger. And it was a feeling that I didn't think that I'd have, but I was just very, very angry. And even on his first birthday, I woke up angry that day. Like, I was very just overcome with anger. And it was Thanksgiving, and we were down there, and I was kind of bickering with her. And finally, she just kind of was like getting it, agitated with me. And we were on our way to go work out. And finally, I just said, like, I just was open and honest. And I was like, I'm sorry. Honestly, I'm so angry that this is what our reality is this holiday season.
Yeah.
I was like, I love the holidays, and this just stinks, because it's just, as happy as we try to make this, it's not what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was angry, and she, I think, took a breath and she kind of could be like, thank you. And also just like, yeah, I'm angry too. And now I get it. I know why you were in that mood, and it's okay, And so again, just being so open with feelings was something she really appreciated, because you can try to hide it. You can try to sit there and act like, happy, let's all be super positive, but it's not positive. It's not. At the end of the day, when you look at the situation, it's a horrible situation. Yes, you can make dark humor of it. You can always, we do look for all the bright sides of things that we can, but it's a horrible situation.
It is.
And so we just, just being honest whenever there was anything that you were feeling was something that I know means so much to her.
Yeah.
And the ones who hid their feelings, it really was hard for her. And it was hard for her to feel that from those people.
Basically, like, they weren't expressing any sort of sadness or anything for her loss.
Or just acting like it's all positive.
Oh, okay.
Just being like, just kind of like putting such a blanket over what it was. And it was like, it's okay to be like, this holiday stinks. Like, this stinks. I feel horrible. Or I would have, for whatever reason, every Tuesday following that day that he was born was a horrible day for me. And I don't know why it was always a Tuesday, but I would always be crying, and I would just everything would flood back on me, everything. And I would tell her, I'd be like, oh, gosh, it's another Tuesday. Here I go again. Like, here comes the grief hitting me really hard today. It's now fizzled out to just, it hits me in the face at random moments that I'm not even prepared for. But yeah, and so just being honest about that, because there were people who were very much like, they didn't want to talk about it either. That was the big thing, that Hannah's okay to talk about her son. Yeah. She wants to hear Declan. She wants to hear his name. Mm-hmm. And there were people who didn't want to talk about it, who would brush over it and be like, oh, well, how are you doing at work this week? And it's like, all right, well, here's how work is. But like, I'm really struggling this week with this, part of grief or whatever. And that was hard for her. And they just kind of wanted to not speak on it and just kind of be like, that happened, let's move forward. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, we can all move forward, but we're never going to get over this. Mm-hmm. This is never going to go away. And we don't want to. We want to keep him alive. We want to always have him a part of us and, him be with us forever. So that was really hard for her, different people who had done that and just kind of like wouldn't speak on it. And because she wants to talk about him, she wants to honor him, and I know especially in this next pregnancy, like she really wants to keep honoring him the best that she can, keep him alive. Like his birthday is so special, and different things on the holidays that we'll do for him and stuff like that. And she also just loves whenever we say things like, I'll go for runs some days and I'll see a bunch of different animals and I'll be like, that's Declan, you know, all the different woodland animals, there he is, like he decided to make an appearance today. Yeah, and that's what she wants. She wants to hear that, and she wants to keep him alive as best that we all can. And so her, you know, she had her days, her good days, her bad days, and she still has her good days and her bad days. We all do. And it got better, you know, time just makes it further away. And it helps you to process through things, but the pain of it's still there. Just like talking about it, I still, you know, there's certain moments and I still lose it and it still hurts really bad. But, you know, time has passed, and his first birthday was beautiful. I made a cake for him because I really wanted to make a cake for him. And so I made a little cake for him, and we had cake, and my dad and brother put up a birdhouse, and they were like, every time that birds come to this, that's Declan. So just to have some sort of like, hey, Declan's birds being sent to us. And it was a good day overall. Like we were happy, and it was good that we were all together and could celebrate him. And also be excited that she's pregnant and has a little girl on the way. And so that's been really, really exciting. But tying into what I had said before with always grabbing her stomach and like saying bye, I haven't done that. And I don't know if that was just me and Declan's thing, but I have also like recently voiced to her that I'm scared. And I had told her, I was like, I am trying so hard to be so excited, because I am, but there's that protective fear of like, until she's here in our arms, I'm just have this protective, like, you can't don't get your hopes up. And I had to voice that to her recently. I didn't even really know what I was feeling until it kind of was an epiphany on me. And I was like, man, I don't know what it is, but I think that's it. Like, I'm just so afraid. And I'm afraid of, you know, until she's here, I'm not letting myself get my hopes up so high. And that's hard. And that really stinks, to say the least, because something that I had written in an Instagram post was, you're supposed to get pregnant and take home your baby. That's just what's supposed to happen. And when that doesn't, you know, you lose that blissful ignorance of pregnancy, and you start to have a fear. And we always said, we're a part of a club we never wanted to be in, and now we're a part of it. A part of me is like selfishly upset because when I choose to have children later, I'm terrified now. And that was something when she went to her OB appointments, I had asked her, I was like, can you ask them if this puts me at risk, or like if there's any correlation? And she was like, absolutely. You know, she wants nothing but to, you know, she's like, absolutely, that's a great question. Let me ask. And, you know, obviously stillbirth isn't genetic, but the cause could be genetic. They had found that not the cause, but their best guess. So she did a whole autopsy. She sent her off, got a full autopsy. Nothing came back. Her placenta was a little small, and they saw some clotting. And so they kind of were like, maybe he wasn't getting enough nutrients. There wasn't enough blood flow. It probably was smaller because it didn't progress past like 33 weeks. And they did find a blood clotting genetic disorder. I can't remember what it's called. It's this specific gene, and it's very common, actually. And they think that is what caused it. But they told her, they said, what's really interesting about your situation is typically with this blood clotting disorder, babies don't make it out of the first trimester. And they were like, so your body was so strong to have carried him this far, because really you shouldn't have even gotten out of the first trimester. And so I think that even alone is a blessing in and of itself, and just shows like
you got so much.
He was supposed to be here for 36 weeks and 4 days. Like, alone was a miracle.
Yes.
And for this next pregnancy, she took all preventative measures. So she did heparin injections.
Yeah. Okay.
And progesterone. And so it's so sad, but she's got the bruises.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I think a part of her, like, it sucks, but there's a comfort behind it of like, it's helping. Like, I'm going to protect you the best I can. Yes. Like, I know she carries a guilt. I know that there's a part of her that just, you know, what I know most of these mothers probably feel is like, I couldn't do it or something, you know, was it me? Was I the problem? And I think like this helps to maybe be like, no, we're doing everything that we can. Like, now, not even this gene can affect the outcome. We're going to do everything. And she's being monitored really heavily this time. Lots more ultrasounds and Dopplers. And her name is Aspen, the new baby.
Oh.
And she moves a lot, and that's really comforting. She's very, very active. Her heartbeat is super strong. She had her anatomy scan, and everything looked great.
Oh, good.
And so there's just, like, one thing that I always said is I was like, I know this new pregnancy is going to be different, and it's going to be different because it's going to be a different outcome.
Yes.
And it's okay that it's different because it's going to be a different outcome. And that's been something that's also, you know, she's like, yeah, it is different. And that gives her that hope as well of like, good, these things are different. And she's felt pretty good in the first trimester. Again, the same little bit of nausea, fatigue, but she's now 23 weeks. So, and she won't carry past like 37. They won't let her.
Yes. Okay.
Just because they don't want to go beyond, what Declan was, and maybe for future pregnancies they'll open that conversation, but she feels like, yes,
if there's any way, yes.
What is safe? I want baby in my arms.
Yep.
I want breathing in there. So the induction, she'll do an induction again, and like they said, they were like, hopefully it's very mimics the first experience, which is what we hope to, because if that was really easy for her, so hopefully it's the same go around. And I'm going to be at the birth, which is something that is really exciting. And that was something that in that next day following, I think we went for a walk on that Monday. And I had said to her, I said, can I be there for the next one? Because something that I like really, really wanted was to be there with Declan. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I really want to be there for the next baby. And she was really happy to hear that. She was like, yeah, like, you know, as long as like Derek's okay with it, like, she's like, I would love to have you there. And I know, like, personally, that Friday that I was traveling up to her, she had told me, like, I was tracking you the whole way here.
Oh.
And that's something that, like, was really comforting to me. I was like, she really needed me there.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, how much she texted me throughout all of it and kept me up to date. It was like, but in turn with that, I really needed her. And that was something that, you know, I always said, I was like, keep my sister safe, keep her safe. Because I also need her. I could not bear to lose her. So it's really like, that excites me a ton, that I'll be able to be there and give to my niece everything I wanted to give to my nephew. But I think what's also really, you know, like maybe a comforting part of grief is I talk to him all the time, and he's always around, you know, when I'm struggling, I'll talk to Declan, and certain things have happened in this past year, and I've always been like, that's Declan. That's Declan putting his hand over our family and, you know, showing us that he is still here. And, that's been really comforting, just to be like, he's all around. And that's something that we've really pushed because she's a girl. We've already went and redecorated the nursery and got all new clothes. And I think that's a blessing too, that we're able to have a girl and she's able to put Declan's things away.
Yeah.
And hopefully to maybe one day she wants her little boy to be able to pull them back out. But it's good that this initial pregnancy and next baby is a girl, to be able to say, hey, let's separate it and have, that whole new experience. Yes. So we're really, really excited about that. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of my long train of thought of everything.
It was so good. And one of the things that, okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the advice stuff that you gave. And I just want to point out a few things that were just so, so good. One of the first things you said when you initially started texting her, when she told you the news, you said, what do you want me to do? What would you like me to say something about this or this? And that act of just asking for permission, because so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would have been so helpful to just give it to somebody to take care of, if that makes sense. So that is one thing as a lost mom, if you're in that situation, sometimes just let somebody take care of that. It totally sucks for you. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot imagine having to do that for a friend, if that makes sense. I don't want to imagine it because it sucks to be the bearer of that news. So, but the fact that you were asking, what can I share? What can I tell these people? Can I tell these people? That really makes a huge difference, because that's a respect issue. That really just is giving them time to also process, because like you said, it just takes time to do that. So I really love how very respectful and you were willing to be kind of that point person for her in that in a very dire time, like in a very sad time. So
I knew everything that I could do for her was not going to amount to the same pain that she was feeling.
Yeah.
And that's where I knew in and of myself and who I am and the things that I've gone through in my life and the healing that I've done, I knew I could take on these things, and I knew that I could do it. So I was like, whatever you need to drop onto me, just do it, because I didn't lose a child. I didn't. I lost a nephew, but I didn't feel him for 9 months. You did. This is so much bigger than anything I'll ever know. But what I can do is I can take away some of these pains that I don't want you to have to feel on top of this. Like that phone call to our mom, I am so glad she never heard that.
Yeah.
Because that would have just added on to things. Or even just from her friends. Like I showed her the text later, but like just their initial response, and I could, just like knowing how much shock they were in. And I knew like if her phone was blowing up like that would have been so overwhelming for her.
Yeah, completely.
Did at one point where the friends were like, can we text her just like that? We're thinking about her. And I was like, let me ask. And she loved that. She loved to only receive the message of like, I love you. I'm here for you. You can do this. You are an amazing mom. Like just being able to read that versus them asking me like, what are you talking about? What's going on? Like the more of the shock and the upset. I was able to take that away. And then just, everything when it came to just everything that I could. I was like, in that hospital, I was like, I'm going to advocate for you. And the times where I could tell like she was feeling uncomfortable and wanted more time with her son. And I was like, let's get out of here. We need to leave. Like, yes, this is our grief too, but this is not the same. And we need to give her that space. And just in those next days, like everything that I could do, it was just, what can I help you with? What can I take away from pain wise? And how can I support you moving forward?
So Hailey, I want to point this out because this is something that I think a lot of people don't quite understand when it comes to grief. There's a book called Option B. Somebody lost her spouse, and she talks about grief as being the person that is grieving the most, that lost the person, is right in the center. And then everybody else that is kind of like a secondary person, and onward and onward. And the person that's in the middle should be grieving, and the people on the outside should be comforting the people within the circles in that are within it. So, so like for you, I would say that you're not right in the center, but you were probably just the one right out about it. And you were supporting her. And I did not hear you say one time that she was supporting you. I mean, like she wasn't comforting you. I don't if that makes any sense, which is the way it should be. Like you were comforting her. But unfortunately, some people come and you're like, I found this a couple times when people would come up to me and just say, oh my gosh, I'm so upset about what happened to your son. And I felt like I had to comfort that person. And I was like, this is weird. I mean, it feels weird. So the fact that just what you did for Hannah was like so beautiful, because you were realizing like, oh, this sucks. Like, and I can tell you are very, like, your heart is breaking because you lost your nephew, and to watch your sister go through this. I think what you did was just so wonderful that you didn't make it about you, if that makes any sense. It was always about her. It was always about Declan. It was always about taking care of them in those really awful days. And since then, right? Like, it's been a journey. It's been a journey since then.
And it's funny you say that, because there was definitely times where I'd be talking to different friends or people, and they would hear kind of my pain, and they would ask me, they'd be like, it seems like you're doing so much for your sister, but you're not getting that back. And I was like, I shouldn't be. And I just remember thinking, like, a part of me would think like, oh, but then another part of me would be like, this isn't like, I don't know. Like, I want to support her. I don't want her to have to sit here and support me. The way that she can support me is just, being okay.
Yeah.
That she is okay, and that she's laughing, and that she's going on with her life, because that's all that I want of her. I don't need her to go and be like, how are you today? And all of that, because I'll be okay. Yeah. I'll be fine. I didn't lose a child.
Yeah.
And I just need her. What I need from her is to just keep moving forward, and to see her move through this and become better and have her next baby and be happy. And that's all that I need from her. And she's been there for me in other parts of being a sister and whatnot. And I still go to her like we all have with all my crap. But in those moments of grief, I just never, even when I was so upset, I would let her know, like, yeah, I'm really missing Declan today. But I made sure to be like, I'm missing him, but what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And it just was like, I think enough, she needed to hear that I was grieving too.
Yeah.
But for me, it really was never like about me. It really wasn't. And I knew that all of these days, all of these things that we did, it was for her. And we needed to do this for her. And we need to do this for Declan too, because he deserves everything that we can give him, what he was.
And I am sure your friends themselves were like supporting you, because I remember you saying, can I tell my friends? I'm sure they reached out to you and were supporting you, because that was the outer circle for you. I mean, so I don't know.
There were these two friends from my chiropractic school. One was 34 weeks pregnant at the time, and I was in a group message with both of them, and I was telling them, and I remember at one point, and all weekend I was texting them, but I remember at one point I said, hey, please tell me to stop if this is too much, because I need to respect the place that you are in right now. Yes. And as a 34 weeks pregnant, like, I don't want to scare you. I don't want you to think bad things are going to happen. Nothing. And she was able, and this is something I am so grateful for the both of them, because in that, those days, like, I didn't want to just pour out to Hannah. I wanted Hannah to pour to me.
Yeah.
But I still wanted an outlet of some sort, and they were that outlet. I was texting them and able to be like, this is horrible. I'm just crying my eyes out. And they were both such great people and figures for me. And she had her beautiful baby girl, and she's almost 1. And what the craziest part about this is, I feel like you don't know about stillbirth. Like, some people know about stillbirth, whatever, but like, really, unless you've gone through it or someone close to you have, like, honestly, I didn't even know what it was. And what was so crazy was about a month after she had lost Declan, we had found out that another person in chiropractic school at 40 weeks lost her baby. And I just remember being like,
what? Yeah.
This was nowhere, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the craziest part as well is I actually had a patient earlier that summer, probably a couple months before, I was going through just talking to her, and she had lost a child at 28 weeks. And I remember when she told me this, and this was 20 years ago when she was telling me,
But still, yeah.
she was telling me, and this had happened to her 20 years ago, or 40 years ago. It'd been a really long time. But I just remember when she told me that, I was like, oh, that's really hard, and just kind of brushed it away because I just didn't know the extent of it. What was crazy was during those weeks, those couple of days after, I texted her and I was like, this is happening. And I just thought of you. And I remember asking her, what can I do for Hannah that you would have needed? And it was really special to have her to be able to be like, Hailey, I'm so sorry. Second, this is what I really needed in those first couple of days. And it helped me again to be able to have someone and then know, okay, this person needed that, so here's what I could also provide for Hannah and help her through. Yeah. It was just crazy to me how, like I said, we never wanted to be a part of this club. Suddenly we were a part of it, and then suddenly it's like awareness, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so much more common than we thought.
Yes.
And it's horrible, but it just kind of was like, what? Like, just crazy how,
It's just it's on full blast now, it feels like. Yes. So one of the things that I love hearing is from people that have gone through this, but I'm wondering if there's any things that you felt like were super helpful that you did for your sister that she has maybe expressed. I'm so grateful that you said this, or I'm grateful you did this, or you arranged this. This is going to be a resource, I hope, for people to just hear that, like, these are some things I can do. I know this is helpful.
Yeah. Check in on them, you know, and if it takes 2 seconds to send a text. So even if you just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, or hey, how are you doing today? You were on my mind. Anything, like handwritten letters she loved, sending her things if you feel the means to, but really just checking in, you know, sending those texts when you're thinking about them. They want to know that they're being thought of and that people are caring for them. It doesn't need to be something where you ignore that or you feel like awkward to do that. They want that. They want, like, she wanted that. She loved seeing all those messages. And even if some of her friends, they check out on me. And that was such a blessing too. So like, even if you're a close friend and you know they have a sibling that's really close to them, or their family member, and you might be close to their mom, if you're a best friend and you're like, oh, I grew up with her parents, check in on them too. And that means a lot to not only the mother, but even the parents, to be like, wow, this friend is really being there. Say their name, say the baby's name, keep the baby alive. You don't have to say it or him, you know, say Declan, say their name, because yes, they're not here present on earth, but they are always here within us in some other way. And honor the little things that mother might want to do. So if they want to do something special to honor them on the holidays, or have a birthday celebration, or, you know, she still wants to wear her boy mama shirt, and she has all these little things that she's bought over the past year of like mom of an angel and different things, like, love that, you know, like, support her in that and be like, yeah, you are Declan's mom. You are a boy mom. Not you were a boy mom or you were his mother. Like, you are his mother. I think really just, you know, maybe putting in a little bit more effort to see that person or hang out with them if you're in the area with them. Get a meal, you know, bring them a meal. She had a friend, I don't even know if they were as close as they were now, that the Saturday we were in the hospital, she texted me and was like, she was also pregnant, probably, I think like 20 weeks at the time. And she said, I made all these meals for Hannah. Can I please come over and put them in the freezer? And I remember thinking like, wow, you did not have to do that, but you went out of your way to do this, and we're not even home yet. Like, and just that was, huge. Being like, that is so selfless of you. Like, you were an incredible person. And, you know, she came, she brought all the meals, and Hannah was just like, wow, like, that was awesome. And they're still very, very close. And so little things like that, like, and even if you've fallen out of friendship with that person, and sure, grief shouldn't be a reason, or a loss shouldn't be a reason that you become friends again, but it can be. And, you know, coming back into their life and being like, you know what, maybe we haven't been all that close over the years. Maybe it's my fault we haven't, but I'm going to be here for you now because you matter to me. This is important, and I want to support you.
I love that. I've never thought of that before, but I mean, there were people that came out of the woodwork that I haven't talked to for years when we lost our son, and I was like, wow, I'm so glad you're here. You know? Yeah.
We would tell certain patients, and like I said, some would cry, some would be distant friends of mine or people she knew, but like honestly, maybe had a hello to them, maybe. And I would always relay that to her. I'd be like, man, I told this patient today and they were so, like, they were crying, or I told this person and she knew where they were. And I was like, every time I see this patient, they ask about you. That means so much to her. And I'll say that every time. I'll be like, they always ask about you. And she's like, gosh, like that just, I know that warms her heart. It just to know, like, they're, you know, they want to know how she's doing. They do care.
Yes.
And even just those people will say Declan. And I think that that's so special. And it's like, yeah, keep him alive. Like, even if it is that you support outside the lines of, there's Out of the Ashes Foundation and supporting, like sharing their post, you know, showing like, I had a friend who go through this, so I'm going to make sure that there's, you know, more awareness to this and more people are known about this. But there's a 5K coming up, and some of my friends are running it with us. And just like doing support if you can in those senses where it's like, you know, I'm supporting you, but I'm supporting all the mothers going through this. And that's really special. It means a ton to just be like, you know, I can put my own problems aside and recognize that other people are going through things as well. I think the biggest thing that I know she needed and wanted was the check-ins, was really just like, hey, I'm here. Hey, how are you doing? I'm thinking about you today. And those were the things that meant the world to her. Other things that really helped her was support groups. So meeting and going to different groups of different mothers who this has happened to as well, and hearing the different stories. I think, you know, she's heard a lot of different stories, and she'll come back to me and be like, you know, my situation was horrible, but it could have been worse. And being able to put in perspective, in a sense, to be like, wow, like, but just to be with some of these mothers and, you know, be like, okay, I'm not the only one. And she met a mom who also lost a Declan. And I think that that's so special. She's like, both of our Declans, and they'll talk about how they're playing together. And even my friend from chiropractic school who lost her baby, I got them in touch, and they've been able to support each other over this past year. And it's just, I know that that has been really helpful for her, is to be a part of those groups and just be around those women and be able to, you know, even talk about the husbands and talk about different things that, like, how's your husband doing? But also supporting, it's another big part of it, is supporting the husband, because I had never seen Derek cry until that day. And that day was very much of like, I saw the love he had for her. And I remember thinking, like, how lucky she is to have someone who loves her that much. Because in that moment, like, obviously he was heartbroken he lost his son. But I could tell that Hannah was on his forefront of like, yes, I want my son back so bad. I miss my son. But I could see the love and the protection he had for her. And that is something that just warmed my heart. I was like, I hope I can be loved that way by someone one day. Like, that is so beautiful that she's been able to have that support and that love and that everything. Like, he has been the ultimate rock for her, and everything that I could have ever wanted for her to be supported by, because I've heard, you know, tragedies that happen between the husband and wife after, and, you know, what could be the outcome. And for her, she's just so fortunate that she has someone like him. But then supporting the husband, you know, however that may be, that the husband needs support, you know, everyone grieves differently. So figuring out how he needs it and supporting him in that way. And I know a big help for him was me being there those next couple of days. It allowed him to go have some time by himself, and I could, you know, take on a lot of the hard things. I think even in this past year where I told Hannah, I said, tell me everything. She did. And that maybe helped him a little to not have to, obviously he was thinking the same stuff or feeling the same things, but not as hard of a weight maybe.
And so just figuring out how you can support him as well. And don't forget that he also lost a child. The mother lost a child, but so did he. And
that was their son too. It was his son too. And so I think that is one thing. I love that piece of advice, because it is so easy for family and friends to really focus on mom only. And dad is sometimes trying to be strong for the mom. And, but they're really suffering, and it could be really detrimental for them in the long run. So I think that's great advice to try and figure out what would help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On the flip side, are there things that Hannah has complained about, or you've heard people say, and you're like, it's not the best thing to maybe say to...
Don't say I understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
You know, don't just, like, when you're talking to her, like, and you ask her how she's doing, like, don't expect her to be like, oh, I'm doing great, like, work is great. Like, it's okay to have the hard, to speak about it. Like, yes, it's hard, and you don't always want to just sit on that, but, like, it's okay to talk about it. Like, it doesn't have to be all rainbows and butterflies.
Yes. Yes.
Don't brush over it. Don't just try to make it all positive. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be negative about it and be like, this sucks. This isn't fair. So don't, like, just brush over it and be like, well, it's beautiful that you even got, like, it's okay to say the hard things too. I would say, like, especially in those early days, make sure that you give them the space. Don't push your problems in those early days. Like, if you are a really close friend, like, for those couple of months, like, put your problems on the back burner and put them first. Don't tell them to go to a therapist. So when they're trying to tell you stuff, don't brush it off and be like, you should go see a therapist for this, like, obviously. And if they're trying to confide in you, if maybe you can't be that, if, like, maybe you can't hear it, maybe it is really hard on you, like, finding a respectful way to be like, I just, for me personally, this is really hard for me to hear and hard for me to sit with. Like, if you're a mom and, like, she's trying to talk to you or something, and it's like, oh gosh, this is just too heavy for me. Just like I kind of said to my friend Morgan, like, hey, I know that you're going through a pregnancy right now. Stop me when it's too much. Like, so finding a way, if it's too hard to listen to respectfully be like, hey, like, I am here for you, but this might be too much.
Yeah.
And the mother probably will ask you as well,
Yeah.
But don't just say, like, oh, go see a therapist, or, like, this would be really good for therapy. Like, obviously they're going to go see a therapist.
Yeah. I mean, you hope they do. And yes, you hope they do. But that's a good point of, sometimes it is pretty heavy, but also it might just kind of, I would like to say that maybe if you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to hear this, is it because you're uncomfortable, or is it really, like, something that is triggering / you have some trauma response because you've had some loss yourself? Yep. I think a lot of people mostly just don't know how to sit with the uncomfortable feelings, because we're just not, like you said, a lot of, like, our society sometimes glosses over the hard stuff and wants to be positive and upbeat about everything. So people are not used to feeling uncomfortable. They're not used to crying. They're not used to feeling sad or angry or all of those things. And so
it's something you can't relate to, like everyone loses their grandpa and grandma. I feel like that's the only loss that we're kind of like, maybe, okay, it's gotta happen. It's inevitable. So you can relate to something like that, but this is a loss that's so out of the ordinary, where I think people just want to relate to you so bad. And it's like, you just can't, can't. And taking that back seat to be like, I can't sit here and be like, I understand, or, don't compare it. Don't be like, well, when my grandpa did, like, no, okay, sorry, not sorry, but, like, this is so different. And it's also not going to be like, I'm never going to, and the mother who lost is never going to compare her loss to your grandpa dying. Like, you can't compare griefs either and compare losses. And so, like, don't try to relate. Don't try to relate to them. You're not going to be able to, just like they can't relate to your griefs and loss either.
Yeah.
But I think that's, people just want to relate. They want to, brush over it. They wanna, and it's just not the reality. It just isn't.
Be okay with sitting with that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
The discomfort is discomfort. Like, it is very awkward feeling, but it's okay. Like, you're going to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to do that mom a favor if you can listen and
Exactly.
be with them. Yeah, it's huge. Hailey, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I feel like I know Declan. I feel like he was a light for everybody, and it is a light for everybody in your family. And I think that is wonderful. As we close today, I'm wondering, do you have any last bit of advice that you think you could give to those who may be supporting somebody that is going through this?
I would say just the best that you can. Tell them you're there. Give them that, hey, I'm here. I'm thinking about you. Just be there the best that you can. Like we said, step back, get in the uncomfortable, be able to be an ear if you can. Send them the flowers. If you're afraid to do something and you think it's too much, it probably isn't.
Yeah.
So just do it.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate every little touch. Advice that I would give to anyone like in my situation going through this, it's something that I had to tell myself a ton throughout all of this was, smile because it happened. Don't cry because it's over. And the best that you can, it's going to be okay. It is. It's going to be okay. Like, somehow there's going to be positive from this. Yeah. And you'll see it. You'll see it. It will come to you in different ways. And, keep them alive. Keep your spirits up the best that you can. And talk to them. Talk to whoever you lost. And just, share something with them, write to them, whatever it is. I think that gives me the most comfort is being like, hey, Declan, like, I saw you, like that burst of sunlight, like I see you. And it's going to be okay. It really is. It really is. At the end of the day, it will be okay.
Yeah. Hailey, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you again for taking the time to tell us about Declan, to be such a support for those in your family that are going through this, and thank you for giving us some good advice, like some excellent advice on how we can show up for our friends and our family.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, it really has.